Control of the mind is the most underestimated competitive advantage in the modern world. People spend years trying to control circumstances, control other people, control markets, control outcomes. Yet they neglect the one system that directly shapes every decision they make, their own thinking. When the mind is unstable, strategy collapses. When the mind is distracted, opportunities pass unnoticed. When the mind is reactive, mistakes multiply faster than corrections can repair them. But when the mind is trained, disciplined, and directed with intention, even complex challenges begin to look manageable, and pressure becomes less threatening because clarity replaces confusion. Every external result begins as an internal command. Before a person speaks, acts, invests, responds, negotiates, or competes, there is a moment, sometimes only a fraction of a second, where the mind decides what to do next. That moment determines everything that follows. Most people never train that moment. They allow emotions to speak first, impulses to decide first, distractions to interrupt first. Over time, this creates a life where outcomes feel random. Not because life is random, but because the mind operating behind the actions is undisciplined. When someone learns to pause, observe, and direct their thoughts intentionally, they begin to notice that situations that once felt chaotic now feel predictable because the internal response has become predictable. High performers in any field understand that mental control is not about suppressing emotion. It is about choosing direction despite emotion. Fear can exist while action continues. Pressure can exist while focus remains stable. Doubt can exist while preparation continues. The person who waits for perfect emotional conditions before acting rarely moves consistently, while the person who trains the mind to act according to principle rather than mood builds momentum that others cannot easily match. Momentum is rarely a mystery. It is the repeated result of controlled thinking followed by controlled action. Consider how many conflicts, failures, missed opportunities, and broken plans originate from a single, uncontrolled reaction. A careless message sent too quickly, a decision made in anger, a distraction followed for just a few minutes that turns into hours of lost progress, a moment of hesitation when confidence disappears. None of these situations required more intelligence to solve. They required more control. Intelligence without mental discipline often becomes wasted potential, while average intelligence, combined with consistent mental control, often produces extraordinary results because decisions remain aligned with long-term goals rather than temporary emotions. Training the mind begins with awareness. Most people do not notice how often their attention drifts, how frequently their thoughts react automatically, how easily external noise changes their internal state. Awareness creates the first layer of control because what is noticed can be redirected. The moment a person notices frustration rising, distraction pulling, or fear narrowing their thinking, they gain the ability to intervene before behavior follows. Without awareness, reaction becomes automatic. With awareness, response becomes intentional. Over weeks and months, these small moments of intentional redirection begin to reshape habits, and habits eventually reshape outcomes. Control also grows through structure. When daily routines are designed intentionally, the mind no longer needs to negotiate every decision. Scheduled work periods, defined priorities, planned learning time, and protected focus sessions reduce the number of moments where impulse can interfere. The less frequently a person needs to decide whether to act, the more consistently action occurs. Discipline, in many cases, is not the ability to force action repeatedly. It is the ability to design systems where action becomes the default. A controlled mind builds controlled environments that support its own stability. Another powerful element of mental control is selective attention. The world constantly competes for attention: notifications, opinions, comparisons, fears, urgent but unimportant tasks. Each time attention is redirected without intention, mental energy is scattered, and scattered energy produces scattered performance. When attention is protected and directed toward high-value activities, the same number of hours suddenly produces stronger results. The difference is not effort. The difference is direction. A controlled mind decides what deserves focus and what does not. And over time, that simple decision multiplies effectiveness far beyond what raw effort alone can achieve. Pressure reveals the level of mental control a person has developed. When situations become uncertain, when stakes rise, when outcomes matter deeply, untrained minds become louder, faster, and more chaotic. Thoughts race, emotions intensify, and decisions become rushed. Trained minds do something different. They slow down internally even when the environment speeds up. They create a small space between stimulus and response, and inside that space, they choose deliberately. This ability to remain steady when others become reactive creates a strategic advantage that cannot be easily copied because it is built through repeated internal practice rather than visible external tools. Mental control also changes how setbacks are interpreted. Without control, failure becomes identity. I failed. Therefore, I am incapable. With control, failure becomes data. This attempt produced information that improves the next attempt. The same event leads to completely different futures depending on the thinking that follows it. People who master their thinking recover faster because they do not spend extended time reinforcing discouraging narratives. They analyze, adjust, and continue. Over long periods, the speed of recovery often matters more than the absence of mistakes, because consistent forward movement compounds, while repeated emotional shutdowns delay progress. The most powerful aspect of controlling the mind is that it influences every other skill simultaneously. Communication improves because responses are intentional. Leadership improves because decisions are steadier. Productivity improves because attention is directed. Relationships improve because reactions are measured. Learning improves because focus deepens. Confidence improves because repeated controlled actions create evidence of reliability. Instead of chasing improvement in dozens of separate areas, mastering the mind upgrades them all at once, creating a foundation that supports growth across every domain of life. This level of control is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in ordinary ones. Choosing to return attention to the task instead of the distraction. Choosing to pause before replying when emotions rise. Choosing preparation instead of procrastination. Choosing consistency instead of intensity, followed by burnout. Each small decision strengthens the internal system responsible for the next decision, and over time, the mind becomes easier to guide because it has practiced being guided. Eventually, the person who once struggled to maintain focus for minutes can maintain it for hours. The person who once reacted instantly can remain composed under criticism. The person who once hesitated under pressure can act with calm precision because the internal command center has been trained to operate deliberately rather than automatically.